Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sanson and Stephanie Phillips with another episode of Veterans in Politics. Today we have Kelly Quinn, Correctional Sergeant for High Desert Maximum Security Prison. But before we get to Mr. Quinn,
Slide the chair.
before we get to Mr. Quinn, Stephanie, do you have any rants? Did you hear somebody speaking? Is it God or somebody was talking?
Oh, no, it's just Mark.
Oh.
Smart.
Well, we have a new layout here, so we're working out the bugs and kinks and all of the stuff. So hopefully we're all in the shot there. We good, Mark? Okay. I don't have any rants, but I wanted to make an announcement. As you all know, Steve has written this How to Navigate Nevada's Family Court System, and we are having a book signing event on February 22nd. It's at the West Las Vegas Library. It's from 3:30 to 5. So come on down. You can get a copy of your book either at the event or you can get it on Amazon. It's $14.99. And bring it with you, and we're going to have a good time down there. Yeah. I think that's it. I could think of some rants, but what's that?
Which library is that?
At West Las Vegas Library, which is at 951 West Lake Mead. And there's an event page on Facebook. We put out a video yesterday. It's all over the place. So you can go to either of our Facebook pages and find it. And that's what we're doing. I'll save the rants for another time.
You think Mr. Quinn is a little nervous?
No. Kelly has been here plenty of times.
I think he's a little
We have lots to talk about. He may not be able to answer everything we ask him, but
nervous.
So I've been here as a candidate before, not as a correctional officer so much. So
Where's your uniform? You're out of uniform.
right, I have to be out of uniform.
he knows the rules.
So,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn, would you like Sergeant Quinn?
No, Kelly Quinn is good. I just happen to work in the prison.
All right.
So
Tell us about yourself.
I ran for state assembly in the 22 election and the 24 election for Assembly District 5, and won the primaries in both, lost the generals on both. So we're still staying involved with the legislative process, and the session starts in just a few weeks. So we're still going to be active in what's happening there, and hopefully other people will be engaged as well.
Yeah,
So,
today the governor's doing the state of a city, right? So what do you
As of
expect to
right
hear
now.
from that?
I'm not sure. I was hoping to watch it, but I'll have to watch the recording later. So I'm hoping he's got good plans for the state. He's got the veto protected on both houses now. We did gain one seat in the assembly, so his veto powers protected in both the Senate and the assembly now. So that's a good thing. There's going to be 42 of his bills that he vetoed last cycle that will be up for review again as soon as the session starts. So hopefully they will be protected still.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everybody can work together. We can get some things done that will mutually be beneficial for all of us in the state, because there was a lot of one-sided bills last time. I remember I wrote in plenty of opposition on those, and we'll talk about the legislative session because we want to get to that part too. But we want to talk about what you do actually.
So as far as my job, though,
what is
so
your
I've been a
responsibility?
correctional officer for 17 years out there. So
What's your responsibility?
I'm a correctional sergeant
For High Desert, right?
High Desert State Prison. Yep. Right now, I'm currently assigned to visiting, but I've been assigned to just different jobs out there. So I'm the visiting sergeant right now.
17 years.
Yep.
That's a long time.
It is. I'm ready to almost call it done.
So you've seen people come in and just stay there for a while,
Oh yeah. There's some of the inmates that have been there longer than I have now.
Is it a maximum
So-
security?
It is now. Just a few months ago, we switched with Ely, so we're now the max facility for Nevada,
Okay.
and Ely became the close custody facility. So,
Okay.
but we've got everything from the DUI offenders to mass murderers on death row. We've got 44 of the 48 death row inmates at High Desert now, and then the high risk potential inmates as well.
What does your typical day look like?
For me, it's fairly easy right now.
Go in there, grab a
in
sandwich.
visiting. Yeah. There you go.
You talk to the visitors?
So we do. We're more on the customer service side of it there. But no, we bring all classes of inmates up depending on the day of the week. And they get to visit with their families out on the floor there. So, and it seems kind of odd bringing the death row inmates up and then we'll put them out on the floor with everybody to visit. So, but really
are they cuffed? Are they behind glass? No?
No. Our DISEG inmates and the HRP or high risk potential inmates go behind glass, but the other inmates all go out to the visiting floor.
And
so
how many officers are kind of wandering that area at any given
typically
time?
there's 2 to 4, depending on what the other 2 are doing. So, but there'll be as many as 4. We've got 41 visiting tables in our facility. So, but it's the same thing at the other facilities as well, in Southern Desert. And
That's a lot of
well.
people and prisoners to have out there kind of open and only 2 to 4. Have you guys
Especially
had
if you're
any?
on death row.
Yeah, I mean, they have nothing to lose,
Nothing to
right?
lose.
So have you had any fights break out or any problems where you had to lock it down?
we've had a few incidents. They usually leave visiting alone for the most part, but we have had some incidents there that they get squashed pretty quickly. But yeah, it does happen.
How often do you have a full lockdown of the facility where everyone is like, the doors closed, I see on the movies and...
I would say last week was the full institutional lockdown, but we always have some lockdowns throughout, depending on staffing and what's going on. If we've had a major fight, then usually they'll lock down just that unit.
What's a major fight?
Where somebody gets stabbed up and hauled to the hospital
Shame.
or killed, either way.
Shame.
So, yeah.
Well, how do they get these
So-
weapons?
Oh, they have their ways. So they'll cut them out of the beds and the tables and pretty much anything you can think of that, break their TVs up and make them out of plastic. So toothbrushes, etc.
Do they do routine searches of the cell, like once a week, once a month? How do you find those?
We try to do some cell searches every day.
Oh.
So the officers are responsible for doing that in the housing units. Doesn't necessarily always happen, but yes. And then occasionally they'll just lock down the entire unit and hit every cell.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to do that about once a week now, depending, just spot checks, different units. So, but we've got fights like every day, and probably the majority of them have weapons involved.
Why don't you just
We've
put
got-
a boxing ring in there and let them go?
Right? Well, they made a movie about that, right? So- yeah, no, we've been accused of doing that before, but no, it doesn't happen. So
How about escapes?
we haven't had any in High Desert. The last one was pretty public from Southern Desert, where the guy was out for 3.5 days and they caught him at the bus station.
So
So that was probably the most recent. And then Casa Grande, which is a minimum, it's a transitional
Sounds like a
housing
resort.
unit. Yeah, it's over on Russell. But they actually go out and work in the community.
right by the airport.
Right. They can hop on a plane.
Yeah. But no, they work in the community. They go to their jobs and come back. So it's easier for them to walk away. And that's what they call them, is walkaways. And I think there's 5 right now on walkaway status from there.
So you've been
So-
there 17 years.
Mhm.
So if I was going to escape, what would I do?
I'm not gonna tell you.
I don't think his superiors
That's
would
one
like
of those.
him to say that.
I tell you.
He knows all the back tunnels, the underground,
This would be a good
That was
the
point
a
to
vent system.
to throw my
I just
disclaimer
want
out
to make
there.
sure you're
but-
paying attention.
No, and by the way, my views are my own. I am not here representing the department.
Exactly.
Just to throw that out there.
So you're a sergeant there. Right?
Mhm.
So what level is that?
Well, we've got the governor, director, deputy directors, wardens of the facilities, then the lieutenants, then sergeants,
So
senior officers,
You're kind of
regular officers. I'm kind of in the middle.
in the middle. So how do you manage
Lower.
both staff and inmates? I mean, how do you kind of like change that hat, especially in a high pressure environment? You know,
Well-
when things are going haywire, how do you manage the staff and how do you manage the inmate?
Totally depends on what's happening at the time. But I learned very early on in my career that a little respect goes a long ways. A little respect goes a long ways. And both ways with the inmates, both ways with staff. And, we have a lot of new staff out there right now. The last legislative session, we've got some benefits for that. So we're able to recruit a little better now. And we're almost getting staffed up, but not quite there yet. But that's the thing now, is getting the new staff trained up to be able to talk to inmates and be able to have that relationship with them as well and make it a good, positive working environment.
How many gangs are in High Desert?
Oh gosh, I looked at that a while back too. There's probably 20, 30
Different
at
gangs.
least, yeah. So, but different subsets of gangs too.
A lot of them are racially motivated.
All of them, almost
All of them are
Yeah.
racially motivated.
Yeah.
All right. So how many Hispanic gangs
Racism.
do you think they're in there? Or is it different types of Hispanics, like
Yeah, there are.
Salvadorians, Argentinians, Mexicans, Puerto
Yeah.
Ricans?
There's different Hispanic gangs. There's different African American gangs. There's different white gangs, etc. But it's racially
any Asian
racially
gangs?
driven. Yes, racially driven, and then where you grew up at.
How many inmates total in the facility?
Right now, we're just shy of 3,000.
Oh, wow.
The most I've ever
Wow.
seen it was just barely over 3,800, but it was only that way for a couple weeks, and then it started dropping back down. And really, since COVID, it's dropped another 1,000 or so.
So,
But we have right at 2,800 and change right now.
do you segregate based on offense and what they're convicted of? So what does that look like? Who do you separate? Like, who's on one side? You have murderers, rapists, what are on
Right.
death row on one side, and then
And their disciplinary status, again, their gang affiliation, types of crimes, yes, protective custody versus general population, et cetera. And then
How do you
we've got-
determine that, though? Protective in general.
The caseworkers do that. A lot of the protective custody, the inmates decide that. So
Really?
depending on their crimes, they're automatically going to be in protective custody.
So if they're a pedophile or a rapist or a child abuser,
Right, they're going to go protective custody. They're not going to walk the GP yard.
because they will
So-
be,
They'll be a target. So
and they will, as a target, what would happen to them?
well, ultimately they'd get killed. But they're certainly going to have issues with that. Gang dropouts, same thing. If you're a dropout and the rival gang that you dropped out from they're going to try to finish you off, so to speak. So
Man, so you got therapists that works there?
we do, actually. There's the
What kind of mental health
caseworkers,
program you
and
guys got going on
is
there?
therapy required for them?
we actually need more mental health workers and medical workers as well. But yeah, there's the caseworkers, there's mental health, there's regular medical health, dentistry. They've got dentists that work out there too. So it's a small town, really. So when you've got 3,000 inmates, at one point we were the 17th largest town in Nevada, if you look at population-wise. If you combine Southern Desert with us, we were the 15th largest town in Nevada. So you got all the regular things that happen in a town
So you got your own
happens
zip
in the
code.
prison. We're with Indian Springs, so
Okay. You know, I told I asked a congressman this one time. I forgot who that congressman was. And we were talking about prisons and we were talking about war. And I said, maybe we should clear out all the prisons and send them to war. I mean, hand-to-hand combat war, and send them to war. And whoever survives, they get to stay in that country. They don't come back to the United States, but they'd be free. Right? And I said, how do you like that? Doesn't that sound like a good piece of legislation?
sounds like a movie.
Yeah. And he goes, well, in hindsight, that might have worked, but, we don't want to let prisoners walk around in different countries. I'm like, they're fighting the
Right.
war. Let them be the first line
Right.
of defense. I mean, like in Vietnam or World War II or Korea, or those those real harsh hand-to-hand combat. I would just clear, if I was the president and I had that power, I'd clear out all my prisons and I'll let them be the first line of defense.
Well, that's kind of what they're doing with the open border. So we're getting a lot of their inmates up here. So, right?
Touche.
Yeah.
Touche. But what would be the most challenging aspect of working in a maximum security prison?
Staff and support,
Awesome.
having the right staff, having the right training, having the right equipment. And we need to be working on that right now.
When you said the right equipment, what are you alluding to?
Protective equipment, shields,
Like vests.
pads, stuff like that, tasers, cameras. We've gotten approval for body cams a couple sessions ago. We still don't have body cams. We've got tasers, gas. So right now the
How about Kevlar?
COs, vests, and things like that. Yes, some officers wear them, some don't. The department does not provide them. We buy them
You gotta buy
ourselves.
your own?
So what a regular officer will have right now is a baton, OC spray, handcuffs, and a radio.
So the guards on the ground don't carry live ammo. They don't
No.
carry weapons. The one in the towers.
The ones in the towers, the control rooms, they'll have the rubber rounds and the OC rounds.
Are they qualified
And-
sharpshooters up there?
No, I don't think there would be qualified sharpshooters, but
Just in case.
we have to qualify twice a year on them
Okay.
with rifles and pistols and the 40 millimeter. So
Do you guys do physical fitness tests twice? Really?
we don't. Well, we're
You do or you don't?
required to test, but we do training every year for our research,
Okay.
defensive tactics.
I wish
and things
Metro
like
would,
that.
would,
So
would do a physical fitness test. Because all those
that we
big
had to pass
fat
every year. Yeah.
people are, I shouldn't say fat, overweight individuals will probably, slim down some. Because, sometimes their belly is over their gun belt. That's a bad scene.
Myself included.
Really?
They used to have a regulation, didn't they? And then all of a sudden, people were offended and they had to back off that. Same thing with flight attendants. Remember, they used to
Right.
have to be a certain weight, right?
Well, just-
Military,
Mhm.
everything. And then all of a sudden, it's just, they got lax on that.
Yeah.
These cops that I
the
see
turnover
cannot
would be-
run a half a mile to
That's why they reach
save
for
their
their gun.
life. God. I'm thinking, how are you going to protect people when you can't run, you can't move fast, you can't defend yourself when you're that, it just doesn't work.
And when was the last time you heard of a police officer in a fisticuff? They usually go for their gun.
Uh-huh.
Back in the old days, they were fisticuffing all over the place. But now it's like they don't know how to fight. Or
I think we do a lot more
is
of that in the
self-defense
prison.
part of your guys' training, by the way?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
That's,
so what do they?
that's mostly what it's about is for our DTs, defensive
what
tactics.
kind of self-defense do they teach you?
Just
Just basic
How-
hand-to-hand, or
yeah.
any type of taekwondo or jiu-jitsu?
more
or
the jiu-jitsu stuff. We'll do some
little
stuff
kung
on your
fu,
feet
maybe?
usually, and then stuff on the pads. And we've got some former officers that have gyms in town that they open it wide open to law enforcement to come down and train. And that's more the jiu-jitsu techniques. But
Do they teach you multi-assailant fighting?
part of the defensive tactics, there's a small portion of that. But
Because I went.
there's
to
not a lot of time spent on it, though.
I went to a class for multi-assailants,
Mhm.
and my instructor was saying, bite their ears, take their eyes out. It was like, if you're dealing with several people you're fighting,
Oh, yeah.
you don't want to be playing with them. So
Right.
you have to do
If it's to that
barbaric
point,
things.
anything goes.
Barbaric things to survive. Do they teach you any of that stuff?
No. There's approved techniques that we're allowed to do.
What are these?
And,
Because,
like-
those inmates are not going to be following no proof.
Right.
It's like
Right.
They
getting
want
to
to kill you.
It's like getting in a
But-
fight on the street. What, are you going to wait
Right.
for a 3 count? The referee's going to come? No.
Such as chokeholds and certain strikes, they're not allowed.
Really?
However, if like you're saying, if there's multi-assailants and it's on,
Yeah.
then yeah, anything's going to go at that point. So
So tell me what's the most memorable experience or incident that just stands out in your head for 17 years behind bars? So I'm sure you have maybe a whole handful. but what was the most memorable one? That one that just kept you up at night, just like.
Was there
Damn.
something nice? Was there a nice, any kind of a nice?
Something that's horrible.
No,
So you want the blood and guts story?
Well, there's that. There's plenty of those, but what
There
about
is.
an inmate that was grateful for something you did, or I don't
So
know.
I've only had one issue ever of inmates out in the street to where it's like, they try to be intimidating. All my other interactions with inmates out in the street have been positive. So one positive case in point was I was at a restaurant. I was meeting my wife there for lunch, and I got there before her, and the host that was seating was all smiles when I walked in. I couldn't place where I knew him from. Okay. And we sat down, and finally I realized that he was one of the unit porters from years ago, and got to talking to him, and he's now managing 2 of the chain restaurants here in town and doing
awesome.
very well, and good for him.
That's awesome.
And there's several of those stories that people get out and they're doing well for themselves now.
Yeah.
That's a good positive thing.
That's really good. Okay, now give him the blood and guts and all.
Some people it's the wrong place, wrong time.
Right. Especially the youngsters that are.
If you would have gone right instead of a left, then.
Yep, into the right crowd. Yeah, blood and guts. You're going to have the people getting killed and sliced up. And
have you ever
murdered
witnessed any of that?
Oh yeah.
You have, and what does that do to your psyche?
Well, I used to do EMS years ago too. So I used to do emergency medical services years ago. So I ran an ambulance and fire department.
So you were in EMT?
So yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I had a lot of that already. And then going into the prison, you're able to set things aside and do what has to be done at the time and just deal with it later. So I've been able to do that pretty well. Okay. Some people can't. Okay. So, and I've seen officers walk off the job after an incident like that. The shootings that we've had years ago, with an EMS background, I've ended up working on a lot of the inmates as well. And both for just regular medical needs and then the trauma needs. So where they've been stabbed or sliced up. So, but there's a fair amount, more than there needs to be. So if we could, again, get the training equipment, experience officers, then we'd be able to minimize that much better.
Have you reached out to anybody for counseling, just to kind of talk?
No, but I have offered, and myself, and there's a group of us that we do try to get together, and especially the new officers, we'll try to bring them in and make sure they're okay with stuff like that. A lot of the supervisors that have been there for a while, they've seen the same thing, and we need to follow up with the newer officers like that, with any of the departments. We went to interim finance several months ago. I forget which month it was, but we did get some funding for doing peer review training for that very thing, and the peer support group, and have the training and the systems in place for that. Hasn't come about yet, but we do have the money for it, the interim finance granted to us. And this next session, we'll be trying to expand that to all first responders, law enforcement, fire, EMS. So that'll be good too. That'll be one of those bills that we'll want to support.
What kind of education, work training, skills, work programs do they have inside for the prisoners that they can join and do? What does that look like?
Some of the ones we have left now, of course, high school diplomas. You can see the community college does classes out there. Some of the trades have classes like HVAC and auto shop, classes like that in the prison industries environment. There's the card sorting business. That's actually at High Desert. That's where the casino cards are recycled. And then they're brought out there, resorted, they clip the edges, and then they sell them back to the gift shops in Las Vegas. So those cards that you buy there are actually through the prison system.
Huh. And how many people take advantage of the education programs and the work programs so that they're involved in, something?
Quite a few. And they've got other training, like I said, the mental health as well, to, the anger management classes and other programming type classes like that. They'll come in and actually teach them in the units. There's some of the school system, they're trying to expand what they're doing this next legislative session also, and which will be a great thing for inmates to get into as well. So that way when they are coming out, then they can go straight back into being something productive into the community instead of going back into the streets and doing what they were doing before.
Do you think it should be required that they should have to be a part of a work program or do something where they just don't have idle time?
Well, in Nevada, you're sentenced to time, not labor. So we can't force them to do anything. However, if they do program and they're going to school, they're working, they're being a porter, they're doing something, they get stat time, good time credits. So you can almost get your sentence almost in half if you're actually doing stuff while you're there to improve yourself.
Okay, that's a good incentive.
So that's the incentive.
Yeah.
Question 4, I think it was, on this last election, where they're talking about the slavery and the involuntary servitude. If that passes again, then I can see that having a huge impact on the prison system. So for me, again, my own views, I don't agree with taking that language out of our Constitution.
Can you
because of that?
Can you
But,
explain that a little bit further?
I can.
For people and
So that question, I believe it's question 4.
Because I remember a lot of people talked about that and were questioning that. But explain that for everybody.
The state's constitution says that slavery, involuntary servitude is prohibited in the state of Nevada, except whereas a duly convicted felon or prisoner. So again, we're convicted in Nevada, you're convicted to time, not labor. So the 3 extremes, if that passes and that language is taken out of the Constitution, I can totally see ACLU or some of these groups saying, okay, you don't have authority to send people to prison anymore. So that's the extreme. The middle part of it, though, is looking at what we have right now. So such as our culinary workers, we pay them about $40 a month to work in culinary. And if that language is taken out, the involuntary servitude part of it, so the $40 a month, that's a job for them. They don't have to go to work. They can quit their job just like you and I. And then they don't get their credits, though. And they're $40 a month. But that language is taken out of the Constitution. Now we would potentially have to pay them at least minimum wage or hire more free staff to come do those jobs. And we have roughly 30 to 35 inmates for each shift in the culinary. We feed 10,000 meals a day. So that part of it would be taken off the table. And now they're no longer programming.
So you would just need more funding and it would cost taxpayers more money.
Yeah, a lot more money. The third part of it is, the judges, prosecutors right now, community service. So instead of going to jail for 6 months, you get your, couple weekends of picking up trash on the highway. That's now taken off the table. So now you have to go to jail or have other sentencing structures in place for that. So those 3 components of the justice system right now would be taken off the table if that language comes out of the Constitution, the way I see it. So that's why it was a no vote for me.
Yes, that's why we voted no.
Have you ever been part of parole and probation when inmates try to get early parole? Do they come to you and ask you for any type of recommendation or?
The parole board does not. I've had inmates ask if I would come to their hearing on their behalf, which I've never done.
Why?
But they do the parole hearings out there typically 4 days a week.
Why
So-
why haven't you gone on their behalf? What was the reason?
I just haven't. It's not
You don't want to be wrapped up in that?
Yeah,
Or
it's
you don't
not-
want to open up that door?
necessarily appropriate for me as a correctional officer to be speaking on behalf of. Not that I, in an official capacity like that. The parole board, though, is held out there, like I say, 4 days a week. Tuesdays are parole revocation. So 3 days are looking at new paroles to get out in the street. And then they go out and violate and they come back for whatever reason. Then the board hears their revocation hearing on Tuesdays to see if they're going to revoke their parole and put them back in prison or give them another shot out in the street again.
How do you maintain safety and order in that type of high risk environment? Do they teach you how to de-escalate by using your words? Do you go through any type of course or seminar on how to talk somebody down? Especially, it's like a lot of mental thing going on in the prison, right? The way you describe it is like I need to have eyes in the back of my head and the side of my head. I need to sleep with one eye open. It's just like an environment that you just constantly fighting to survive. I mean, when somebody lives like that without any kind of peace and harmony, it really messes with their psyche. So how do you deal with that?
Well, in our academy and in our research training, yes, we do have de-escalation training, minimal as it is. Pretty much all law enforcement is trained and ongoing training for de-escalation. That's really what it's all about. And out in the street, in the prisons, whatever. And I've taken some individual classes myself for that, so I can get better at it in my own capacity. But our department's training, I can see where we need to expand on that some more, because there's some people that have no business working there. And if they can develop themselves a little bit more for that, then good for them.
Do they teach you how to read a room, how to read body language?
I think a lot of that comes
in somebody's voice.
Yeah.
Do they teach you?
Not in our
any of that?
academy, no.
No. What
But
kind of
that
what kind of
comes with
requirements do
experience.
you have to or training that you have to do to be in the position that you are in today?
I think that part of it comes with experience. And we've got a lot of our brand spanking new officers that haven't gone to the academy yet, that they're on the yard just learning and watching people. So I think it's a great opportunity for them to get into the units and in the control rooms to watch just that. Look at the politics on the tier, look at the body language, and have somebody teaching them what this means and which players are working with other
You work the
players.
yard, right?
Yeah.
And you know the gangs that are there, right?
Mhm.
So could you just tell by observing and watching the inmates that some shit's gonna go down right now?
Yeah. it would-
Hey,
Yeah.
Charlie 7. This is Big Kelly here. I think something's gonna happen with gang espionage over there.
You do. And
could you?
you talk to inmates and they'll give you the heads up on what's going on, and
So
and
there's
you can
snitches in
read
there.
body language.
That's not
and
good in prison.
You can, but no, you talk. You spend more time with these inmates than you do your own family. So, when something's wrong with them. If they're like won't even look you in the face anymore, something's up.
How many people are in the yard at one time? How many inmates?
It depends on the unit. Our larger units right now, we have 336 to a unit. And not all of them come out to a yard at once. Typically 2 tiers would come out. And so there's just over 100 people.
And how many guards are roaming that area?
Maybe one watching. One gun rail watching and maybe one on the ground watching.
100 people.
But
That's
Yeah.
One
yeah,
guy on the ground.
The ratios are bad.
Isn't that the most likely place where the fights break out during that, or is it when
Yeah.
they're inside?
They do. Most of the fights break out inside though.
What is one guy going
On
to do
tier.
with
So-
100?
Just call and get the backup
It's
there.
like a security guard in the
So-
mall, right?
No, you get on the radio, and we do have like the pepper balls and
I mean, you
the
got
40
you
millimeters.
got ex-cons over there that,
Mhm.
that probably did crazy things, gangbangers. They're not scared, right? And some of them probably have training and fighting, and their heart is like Satanism, maybe.
All of the above. Yes.
Yeah, and you one guy on the ground and 100 of ruthless criminals in the yard. What's that one guy gonna do? Does he get
Right.
hazardous duty pay?
No, that's what we get paid for. So, but no, you don't get hazard pay. But yes, you get to. We have all walks of life in there. We've
I'd
got
rather be the guy
MMA
in the
fighters
tower.
in there.
I'm
We've got.
safe.
Well, there you go, and you've got somewhat of a weapon there. So,
But the guy on the ground, that's probably concerning. Were you ever that guy?
Sure.
And
I'm
so,
on the ground
so
now.
explain to me, Mr. Quinn, what was going on in your mind when you're on that ground and you got 100 hardcore criminals in the yard?
Gang members.
Gang members that know how to fight, that don't mind slicing your throat, would probably take a Facebook photo doing it. Have no conscience.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of them have mental illness and delusional issues. What was going on in your head?
Well, you make it sound like a movie, but
It is a movie.
you talk
But
to
it's a real life
people.
movie, right?
Yeah, you talk to people. The inmates. You get to know who they are, what they're about, and what their affiliation is, and the types of businesses they run, et cetera. And again, when they all of a sudden are clamming up when they're normally talking to you, there's something going on there. Or when inmates start grouping up, as an example, then there's something ready to pop off amongst the gangs, things like that. So, but yes, you need to be mindful of that and not walk right in the middle of it. So
Is that when you call for backup and they come out?
we do.
Right then?
If we see people grouping up and we know something's about to pop off, then yeah, we get on the radio and start preparing for that. And we'll just recall the yard or recall the unit and
Do they have
deal
any,
with that.
Do they have any animals or any programs where they bring in animals?
Cockroach.
Well, no,
Right,
like you know how they do therapy with dogs or certain animals. They don't allow that.
We do not. There is a dog program at the women's prison that it's one of the rescue groups that house the dogs there until the weekends, and they take them out and try to adopt them out on the weekends. Up north, there's a similar dog program up there. I was trying to do a dog program at High Desert for several years now, both for drug dogs, for officer use, and another parallel to that was for service dogs. And 'cause I think it would be a really good therapy type of a
Absolutely.
job for inmates to do is
Right.
to go train dogs that they know it's going to go out to the community and be used for the betterment of the public.
Yeah.
But as of right now, we do not have that at High Desert. I think it's a great opportunity to do
Yeah,
that,
they
but,
should.
thus far, it hasn't been supported.
How many? We need to talk to our legislators. What? Or the warden, who determines that? What kind of programs?
It would be
Is
the
that-
director and deputy director,
Oh, okay.
and of course with the warden.
Okay. What was I going to ask? I know. So how many inmates have said they want to be women or they identify as women and are transferred to the women's prison, but they are biological men? Does that happen between your prison and the other?
None has happened yet.
Okay.
We do have one that is suing the state right now to do that. Because his judgment of conviction was changed, where he was allowed to change from identifying male to identifying female,
Mm-hmm.
but he's still intact.
But still has
So,
the parts of a man.
yes.
Okay. So he's a man.
So the last session, there was a bill that went through that requires insurances to cover gender-affirming healthcare, sex changes. And the question was asked specifically in the hearing, does this affect inmates in custody? Well, yes, it does. And we have just over 70 inmates right now that are trying to transition, as I've been told.
How many inmates are there total? You said
Almost
earlier?
About
3,000.
3,000. Yeah, just shy of 3,000.
How
So
many
s-
correction officers?
When we're fully staffed, I think we have 460 some now. So
At one given time?
no,
That's
we
a-
have like 110, 115
4 shift.
for a shift. Yeah,
Is it 4 shift?
2 and then a mid shift. So we just changed that recently, but
So you have 70
just over
that
70
are
that
trying to get this
transition
done, the
Yep.
surgery.
that we get to pay for now because we have to allow them to do that. And
And how much is that?
I can
surgery?
see, well, one of the figures that I looked up was average cost of 1.4 for the
1.4
entire
what?
process, million, for the entire process from start to finish.
But the insurance
So-
company doesn't pay that much. They probably pay a negotiated rate, I would imagine.
So,
So that once they fully transition and they can get this surgery done while they're in prison?
as per the legislation last cycle, yes.
Okay. So then you pretty much you have to grant them a transfer to the women's prison then, right?
The director, to my understanding, said that as long as you're still intact, you're going to be in a men's prison. Once you're completed, then that's at that point you would be transferred. If that makes sense.
They do it different in California, don't they? Don't they transfer?
They
men
have
still-
transferred.
Yes.
Every state that's done that so far, they've had an outbreak of
It's a
pregnancy
disaster.
in the prison.
They had rapes in the prison.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, rapes too.
The one guy that is suing to go to the women's prison, that's what he's in prison for, is rape.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
Jeez.
So how do you you have a team, right? Do you have a team? Being a sergeant, do you have your own?
yeah, I've got my visiting staff that I work with now. So
And how do you prepare them for crisis management?
we don't do a whole lot really with that other than our research training, and training is much to be desired there. And each area, the officers rotate through so often as well. But I'm fortunate enough that my staff is pretty consistent. We just transitioned about half of them just a couple weeks ago. So, but we're just trying to get our administrative policies up to speed right
speed.
now. So,
What are some of the misconceptions that you've heard about the prison?
about prisons,
Yeah,
that we're all a bunch of knuckle draggers just going in beating up on inmates.
is that true?
That's probably the biggest thing that, like, no, it's not true, not at all. So,
would you tell me if it was?
sure.
Okay.
But like I say, we've got some officers that have no business being there, but we'll eventually cycle them out. But by far, the majority of staff are there for the job, and most of them want to make a career out of law enforcement.
And how much could
We
you
might
make
be
year?
a stepping stone for some other agency, but
How much does a correction officer make?
right now, I think
Entry level.
it's up into the 50s and 60s right now. I think that just changed this last
and
session.
how much does the warden make?
Probably 110, 120.
Because he's probably the highest.
Yeah.
Is the warden
So-
the one that makes the policy
Probably.
for the prison?
The associate wardens and the wardens, that's where they start making policy, that they sign off on everything. As far as the department policy, that goes up to the deputy director and director and legislature, of course,
So a correction officer makes about $50,000-$60,000 a year, which is not much money, right?
too.
to live.
It's decent. We just got some, last legislative session, I've got some hiring bonuses that just added. I think it's $7,500, a hire-on bonus. The biggest increase we've gotten ever was the last session,
So
which
tell,
was great.
tell me about contrabands
Mhm.
in the prison, because I know you and I spoke briefly at one time about contrabands coming into prison. How does contraband get into the prison? Because we know that some of the prisoners that are in prison, they're probably making money being in prison, right? It's a money-making thing. So do you know how that network works? Because they got to deal with the people on the street, and somebody's got to bring in a product, and the product And the only one that could actually bring products in would be the COs.
No,
Now, explain.
we've got
Love to hear this.
visitors. Visitors will bring stuff in.
How they get
That's
stuff in
where
there? They're all
my
searched stuff, right? Aren't they searched up?
They're patted down when they come in, yeah. That's the other thing. Everybody gets patted down
Right.
coming into the prison,
Well, how can they bring in a carton of cigarettes?
including staff. They don't bring cigarettes.
What do they bring?
Cigarettes aren't allowed. So
What do they bring? What do
no, they bring in the harder drugs that are worth a little bit more. So,
Don't you have
but
dogs
we've got
sniff for that?
sure.
Detect. I mean,
Yeah,
come
that's what we're
on.
talking about. So I would love to have dogs though,
So
but
you don't have dogs?
No.
You don't have a K-9 unit in that?
Mm-mm.
You're a maximum security prison.
Sure.
Shouldn't you have a K-9 unit? I'm not beating you up, Mr. Kelly, but I'm just saying,
Well,
But
like
should-
we've talked before too,
shouldn't you have a K-9 unit?
that
They need more funding.
the funding for it, the administrative support for it, policies, procedures, et cetera. I think we could get the funding back from legislature if we asked for it. But, I'll come back to the drug thing here in a minute, but the dogs, yeah, I think we've got a huge opportunity to bring dogs in, and we could absolutely sniff for it and find the drugs. When you can have a dog that can find storage media in a camera or a cell phone, then they can smell a lot of stuff. So, but as far as the drugs coming in, yeah, we've got visiting staff, we've got regular staff,
The janitor.
officers, officers, maintenance, free staff, caseworkers, medical staff. There's a lot of people that come and go. And we don't have the airport screeners like you would think.
TSA.
It's just a pat down type of a search, lunch boxes, etc.
So this is a maximum
Um,
security prison, though. Did I miss something?
Well, no, you're on the right track.
Have one
You're
of
on the right
those
track.
TSA things because they basically
So-
see you naked in those.
But it's the money.
Pretty much.
It's the money thing. So,
It's the,
and likewise, the mail. They mail stuff in, and
but don't
you've got
don't.
drones.
I thought
that
you
will
guys read all
drop
everybody's
stuff.
letters and open up
We
everybody's mail.
open every piece of mail. We don't
Yeah.
read all the mail. We scan through it and look for contraband.
Mhm.
But it's still, there's thousands of pieces of mail every day, and
So correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't prison supposed to be a rehabilitation to convert you back into society?
Sure.
Is that
thus
is that
corrections.
supposed to? Is that how it's supposed to work? Is that the mission statement?
Right.
of
We're
a prison?
supposed to
What is
to
the mission statement?
enter
of a
them
prison
back
anyway?
into
what is the mission statement?
society.
Is that the
So
mission statement?
the mission statement, I can't even remember it word for word anymore, but it's to keep the public and the visitors safe in Nevada from offenders and keep them in custody, and to facilitate them getting back into society.
What changes? You've been there long enough. So, what changes would you like to see established in the prison system that is not there
For me, and
for you?
as a former candidate as well, and again, my views don't necessarily represent the department's views,
Gotcha.
but I think we need to be way more supportive of our staff and
How so?
give them the
Christmas
training.
bonus?
No, not money is not really that big of an issue. It's the creating the work environment with the support and the training and the equipment that they need to do their job well,
Mm-hmm.
and to have enough staff to do the job well. And the money will come, but if we can keep the retention and the new hires there, which up until this last session, we had a 48% turnover rate, first year COTs. We'd lose half of our officers
48%.
the
Wow.
first year they worked there.
That is a high number.
Absolutely. And then from that point on, it was 27, 28%, depending on the year, of a turnover rate,
Mm-hmm.
which is ridiculous. And then up until this last session, when you have somebody who would post the job, and you might have 3 or 4 or 5 people even apply. If they even show up for the test, then once they did get accepted, was a whole nother thing. So we were coming out of COVID with almost 140 vacancies. of our officers. So we're 25-30%
Do you
down.
guys do a psyche test?
They're
When they initially hire, do they do psyche test?
it's minimal now. It used to be like an 800 question test, but I don't think they do that now. But
Really?
I could be wrong though.
Probably a good thing that
So
they should do that.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, but we've got more people, at least applying now. Right now, we've got 80 some odd officers waiting to get into the academy here in another week or two. And we'll lose a good chunk of them in the academy. And
Why you say that?
because they don't necessarily know what they're getting into and they can't pass the academy. So
Do they put them
if
in
they can-
scenarios?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
they PT them, they give them written tests every week that
They
they
put them
have
in-
to
They put them
pass.
in
And
high-profile scenarios, like somebody's getting shanked. What would you gonna do? You know.
some scenarios like that, but yeah.
Okay.
But that comes more with the defensive tactics training.
But even the written
But-
tests and those things, some are failing and
Right.
don't get through.
Right. So, and some people just are going to find different jobs that they like better. So
So how do you balance professionalism with empathy when dealing with inmates?
like I say, a little respect goes a long ways. And I'll give inmates a lot of latitude until they give me a reason not to. And I think that's great with law enforcement. I've seen many, many officers that are good in the street do the exact same thing. And that they're great in dealing with the public until you give them a reason not to.
Have you ever ran across an inmate and they're charged with, I don't know, whatever, murder, rape, and they say, Sergeant Kelly, I didn't do it.
Mhm.
I'm innocent. They say everybody in prison is innocent, right?
Sure.
But somebody that you really felt that is innocent, do you do anything? Do you give them any advice? Do you
No.
don't, you treat them like the regular guy?
Yep, I hear that a lot, and I choose not to even get involved with their judgment of conviction. The court sent them there for a reason, and it's not up to me to try to figure out if they're innocent or not.
Okay,
They're
fair
there.
enough.
But by the same token, I'll give them respect. And like say with the child molesters and stuff like that, it's for a lot of
prejudge them?
officers, I try not to, but a lot of officers they have a hard time dealing with a child molester, but you have to give them the same respect as a person as anybody else.
What advice would you give somebody that's considering correctional officer? What would you tell them?
Check it out.
How?
Check it
Spend a
out
day in prison?
first.
Shadow a CO?
I would love to do that, actually, to give them
Do they have that? They don't allow that?
no. But they are doing the program that once you're hired, they'll hire you and actually have you come out to the prison, and they might be filing and sorting and doing stuff just to stay busy to get a paycheck until the academy starts. So at least you're walking the yard a little bit and seeing what it's about and hearing what's going on, and
You're in the environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not allowed to deal with inmates at all, but certainly can't go hands-on with an inmate at all, but they're there. They're behind the doors, behind the fence, and they can see what's going on. That I would encourage anybody to do. Get online and look what the job's about. Talk to officers. I don't know what CCDC has down here, if they do any of that, or Metro, but Metro has the ride-alongs in the street. I think most departments do, so go on some of those. You learn how to deal with people.
Let me take you back to memory lane, okay?
Mhm.
Down memory lane a little bit. 17 years ago, you took the oath, right?
Mhm.
To become a correctional officer, okay? And 17 years later, today, right? You're still a correctional officer. How does that, if it does at all, change your perspective on crime and justice in this country?
I've learned a lot more about it and the processes, and even as a candidate, I've learned a lot more about the processes and meeting some of the judge candidates and judges that are running also, and learning more about the court system, which obviously I need to learn more about that as well, as you're doing.
Did you buy my book?
I did not. That's the
Shame
first time
on
I've
you.
seen
Kelly.
it.
Shame on
Are you
you.
going to give me one?
No, you got to purchase it.
You got to come to the book event.
$14.99.
Leslie,
You
put
got
it on your calendar.
$14.99? How much you make an hour?
I'll buy it.
How much you make an hour?
I don't even know. I choose not to look at that because I
But
get
it's
depressed.
more than
about
$14.99.
it. So yeah, I'll buy a book. But no, the entire system I've learned a lot more about, which is helpful. You know, when I did EMS,
You're hourly, right? You're not salary.
no, I'm hourly. But when I did EMS, and I was a regulator, so I regulated EMS both state level and county level, and that took me into legislature a lot. So that part of it I'm very familiar with. The regulatory side of it and the political side of the emergency systems here, I've learned a lot more about, especially being with another state agency. So I've worked for 3 different government agencies. So with the Health Division, Health District, and now Corrections. But so that's my perspective, I guess, has matured more, I guess, and learning how to deal with people better.
So are there any biker gangs in High Desert?
Mhm.
Okay. I was reading an article the other day, and he was saying that biker gangs are now considered to be a terrorist organization. How do you?
Parents are considered terrorists at the school board.
How do you?
Right.
Touche.
Right.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Bikers being a terrorist organization, well, depends what crimes they're committing. So I can see that in some regards, but I don't know. I'd have to dig into that a little more, because the terrorist has been thrown out there as a buzzword for several years now.
And how could the public help?
Being involved with legislature, or being involved, period, in the community. And I think it all starts with the family at home. Because if you can get to these kids before they get into the life of crime and ended up in the prison system, then we've made huge headway there. But if we can keep the families together, keep the kids out of the path of crime, keep them in schools, keep them educated, the school system also needs to be worked such that the teachers have control of the classroom and they're actually getting educated instead of being indoctrinated. And then with parents being involved there, with the general public being involved with society, what's happening in legislature right now. And there are many, many people that don't know what our legislature does. And they're meeting the first week in February, and for 120 days. That's when they're making laws for the state of Nevada and spending the taxpayer money. So be involved with that process. And it's very simple to do. And we're putting several small groups together to do just that. If you want me to touch on that, I'll be glad to expand on it. But
Which of those 40 bills do you want to see killed?
there's 42 of the 75
Okay.
that were vetoed last cycle by the governor. And they'll be up for going back to the House of Origin to see if they're going to overturn them. Now, some of the same bills already have BDRs written to be heard again this cycle.
Are there any in particular that you really want to touch on and oppose?
I would support all of the governor's vetoes. From my perspective, there is one that I wish he would have reconsidered, but I would still support it at this point. But I wouldn't have any heartache if they did overturn it. And that was the one to allow PERS to be negotiated into a collective bargaining agreement. Mm-hmm. And he had made reference to another bill as to why he vetoed it, but the bill in reference didn't actually pass. So I was hoping he'd go back and look at that. So but all the other ones, I'm in support of his veto.
And are you going to run again?
I've not ruled it out. Assembly District 5, of course, is every 2 years. Senate District 8 is going to be up this next cycle. I've not ruled that out either, but I want to see some things happen in the election process, because otherwise we're just kind of going with the.
Give me those highlights real quick.
I would love to see the mail-in ballots go away, and I would love to see some paper ballots at the precinct level, and counted at the precinct level, and do away with the electronic machines. Last cycle, I'm not really dug into it this cycle yet, but the 22 cycle, my numbers in the early voting, I won by 30%, easy win. Election day numbers, I won by 40%, easy win. The mail-in ballots, I was down by 80%.
And that's something.
So, and there is a lawsuit pending right now for some of the election integrity that hopefully that will bring a lot of things out as well in our election process, perhaps nationwide. But I think even in Congress, at the federal level, they've got the trifecta now. So if they do something there with the federal elections, then that would be huge for Nevada.
Yeah.
And then I would be much more inclined to participate in that process.
It's defeating when you put out so much of your time, your life, your money, and then to have things like that happen, and it's very disappointing. So,
And how about you?
I don't know. I would say I haven't ruled it out. Definitely 26. I'm not in the game because we're doing so much and I'm so busy. We have a lot of things going on right now. So yeah, probably not 26, but maybe 28. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So how many inmates vote? Or does High Desert give them the opportunity to vote? And what does that even look like?
No.
They don't vote.
No.
Nobody
Felons,
in the 3,000 people don't vote.
No. Felons in custody do not vote.
Felons in custody.
Once you're
vote.
out of custody,
Then it's different.
felons have been able to vote since 2019. So once they're
we
out,
we have a felon in the legislature right now.
I don't know who that is.
What's his name?
So
Shoot, he beat your buddy. What's his name?
Oh, District 6.
Yeah,
Nephi.
yeah, he beat him.
Yes, wasn't that Assembly
Giovanni
6?
or Giovanni
In the north.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know his name.
He's a felon, and he's in the legislature right now.
good for
Just
him.
got voted
So I have no heartache with that.
Yeah.
So another gal that ran in the 22 session, Kat Rios, she ran also. But
She was a
I
felon
have
as well?
no heartache with that. So
She was a felon as well.
so that's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but now they did pass a law the last session as well that inmates in jail who have not been convicted yet have the opportunity to vote because they're not convicted.
Right.
So now the jails have to make provisions to allow them to vote.
Gotcha.
And I know Nye County had some issues with this last election cycle, but it's my understanding that CCDC did put things in place for it. But
Do you guys identify veterans in the prison system?
we've got a couple units that are veteran units.
Because they're at the last survey I looked at, there were about 188,000 vets between federal and state prisons. How many are in your prison? Do you know?
121.
You do know the exact amount? 121 veterans
Yep.
that are in prison.
At High Desert. At High Desert. Not necessarily statewide, but
Do you segregate all of them?
no.
Just based on that? No?
We
Okay.
did have a couple wings in the housing units that were for veterans. One in the GP unit, one in the PC unit. So, but yeah. And they have different things that they do for programming as well, and they're allowed the opportunity to do that.
Like what are the different things?
There's a painting crew, and they're allowed to do certain classes amongst themselves as well. So
what are the different activities? There's religion. They could go to their religion. They could go
We got
library.
chapel, we got law library, the regular library, schools. They can get a job in the card room. They can work in the unit as a porter
Mm.
and go to the infirmary to be a porter.
Mm.
Um,
Or they could work out.
trash crew.
They could work
so-
out on the yard.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
tell me, you're in charge of the yard, right?
No, I'm in charge of visiting.
You used to be in charge of the yard.
I
I
worked.
thought you were in charge of the yard.
No, I worked shift command before. Worked several years there.
Identify
But-
the yard.
and
I'd like
then
to know
I've-
what's on the yard.
So we've got 21 housing units. So from our intake unit all the way around to intake to general population to our SEG units to our death row unit,
So there's
which
different
part
yards.
of that is quads.
Quads. They're not called
So
yards.
the entire yard is the yard.
Okay.
So then we've got,
So they're sectioned off.
correct. There's 1, 2 quad, 3, 4 quad.
So the
5, 6
general
quad,
pop yard, what does that look like? You got your weight area.
I'm sorry.
You got your weight room area
There's a weight room in the gym.
inside the gym.
I think that's the only weight area there right now is in the gym.
Then you got your basketball area.
And yeah,
You got your football area.
pretty much all of the yards have a basketball, handball type area.
Handball.
Mhm.
You have a track and field area.
They can go around the quad itself. That's it.
How about a football area?
No.
So does
No football.
does
There's a basketball in the gym
have
also.
I missed an area? Haven't said.
No,
Okay.
not really.
So does different gangs control different areas of the yard? How does that work?
Officially, no, they don't. There's some of the politics in a unit, though, that they will charge a fee or charge rent to use the phone or to do certain things,
It
or
is a
certain people
business.
get, yeah. That's one of the things is the phone, showers, stuff like that. But we've got certain things that we have to do, such as showers and feeding. So we have to feed, we have to count.
Has there ever
And-
been a lockdown for High Desert? There
Absolutely.
have been.
Mhm.
And
Last week.
Last week was a lockdown.
Mhm.
Why?
A stabbing, actually a murder and stabbing,
And what's the protocol to lock down the prison?
depending what's going on. Like the Ely riots, when they had that here a few months ago, they had one of the gangs, they tried taking out the shot callers. Actually, they did take out some of them.
And who are the shot callers?
And the leaders of the gangs. So, but
How does one become a leader
I
of a
don't want
gang?
to overstep my comments, but in Ely, as an example, when that popped off there, that created a statewide lockdown.
Gotcha.
All institutions in the state lockdown because we didn't know how big it was going to blow up because it had started at High Desert a few days prior. And the next day, to my understanding, they killed another one of the gang members in the street here, which resulted in even more of a gang war. And then, so we were on lockdown for months because of that.
What does that look like?
We feed in-house. They don't come out on tier. When they do come out to the showers, all movement is restrained. But we have to offer a shower at least every 3 days. And they come out for that. But the biggest thing is we feed in-house for every inmate. Meaning we open the food flap and hand them a tray.
Has any of the correction officers or staff been taken hostage?
Not that we've had officers stabbed. We've had fights break out in their offices before. So they're not really taken hostage there at our facility anyway. But no, we've had several, in my opinion, attempted murder on our officers, and especially coming out of COVID. And like I said, we've had officers stabbed, we had a nurse get stabbed up, we've had officers try to get thrown off the top rail, others beat with their own batons.
Why do you do this?
It can be enjoyable on its own.
Really?
So
Sounds like a madhouse.
yeah, it's not that way every day. So
Would
But
they give you pecans every once in a while?
do what?
Pecans.
Yeah. So
it just sounds like
it's not bad.
It sounds
can
like
be.
a very hostile.
But just like an officer in the street, they're going to.
I'd rather be the officer in the street.
So, or just like a EMS person or
You know why I'd rather be the officer on the
firefighter.
street? Because there's some very nice people on the street.
Sure.
It sounds like there's nobody
Well,
nice in there.
We know what we're dealing with, but
At least
may
you know where the
not.
enemy is,
So,
right?
right.
Basically. Yeah.
right. But it takes a particular person to be able to do any of the emergency response type jobs. So I think that's why we need to support all first responders, and and veterans as well. That's the whole point here. But yeah, it takes special people to do that.
And when you say a special people, what exactly?
That can deal with that and be able to set it aside and find some satisfaction out of doing the job. If you're miserable at it, you don't belong there.
And what satisfaction do you get?
I get to see some of the positive results out of it, like we were talking earlier. That and with staff, it's enjoyable
So you got
to see results.
So this program right now has over 153 views. What would you say to those people that are watching you right now talk about High Desert Prison? What would you say to them? What would you tell parents? What's the average age in the prison?
Oh, we've got the youngest I've seen is 14 since I've been there.
Wow.
Two 14-year-olds.
Oh
But
my gosh.
we don't have minors anymore because of the PREA laws. But gosh, the average, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. Probably in the 30s or so.
Is people that are in prison today, are they from broken homes or?
The vast majority came from broken homes
And when
without
you say,
a father figure present.
without a father figure present.
hmm
So
I noticed that early
plays a
on
lot,
in
yeah.
my career. That's why I was saying that if we can keep the family unit together, if we can keep parents,
hence
families
there.
intact, yes, and keep the kids involved with school and productive activities instead of going out in the street.
So I just want to get this clear in my mind. A lot of people that are in High Desert maximum security prison from broken homes, because they lack a father figure in the home. They don't educate themselves, or they're not educated, or they haven't received degrees.
I think that's a lot of them. Yes,
Yes.
probably almost the majority of them. And we have dirtbags that are going to create
Right.
crimes and go to prison. But systemically, I think that, the education side of it,
Right.
by far, that's where the high school diploma program comes in, the community college, and getting them into the trades, etc.
Mental health probably plays another role in
It's
there, right?
huge in prison.
Huge.
Yes.
And huge,
And
as
I
in how
think-
much percentage huge?
I think we need to support mental health, again, with mental health providers that want to be there, that aren't just collecting a paycheck, and give them the resources also to do the job they need to do. And one of the things at High Desert is staffing levels. And well, even in this community, mental health is huge in this community as well, and across the population. And we need to figure out how to support that, both in the community and at legislature, to do that.
If you ran the prison, you were at the top.
Warden.
All right.
Warden Kelly.
Yeah. What three things, or what would be your top priority to change immediately out there?
Again, support for staff and being involved with legislature, because they have to prove everything we do, and educating legislature on how they can support us. Again, being on the campaign trail and having access to a lot of the legislators, they don't have a clue what we do. And they have to approve laws and give us money to do what we need to do. And the Board of Prisons is the governor, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General, and the director. How about putting some legislative representatives on there also, so that they can take that back to the committees? So the support of staff, trying to get more staff, equipment, and training. Those are the things as a warden that I would be looking at doing.
Do they send a representative from the prison to go meet with the legislature so they
really know what's going on?
No, that's the thing about a state agency, though. And I did talk to the deputy director about this just recently. So Metro has 3 paid lobbyists that are officers with their department. So we don't have that. We do have the deputy directors that will participate with the legislative process and the director. The other part of it is the state agency is we have to support the governor's budget, the governor's plan. We work for him. So once he turns that budget and the program over to legislature, we have to fall in line wherever it lies. That's why I say here that my views are my own. I don't represent the departments because I will go and talk to legislators and tell them what we need. And I think that's how we got a lot of what we got last session, because we need people to participate. And even going back 20 years ago, doing legislative work, I'd have some of the committee chairs tell me, pack the committee rooms. You got to be involved with it. And that's been a heartache of mine since I've worked there. It's like pulling teeth to get officers to show up to a committee hearing. And once we start getting that participation, especially if we're in line with the director's agenda and the governor's agenda, now we can get something done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just educating people about that process.
They should make you their
So-
political liaison to go discuss the prison
I love
system.
it.
So, Mr. Quinn, I take it this is an all-male prison.
It is.
Um,
The women's prison's out by the street.
so, if you had to break it down, what would be the large number of what would be the biggest religion that's in there? Whether it's Buddhist or Muslim or Christian, what would be the biggest religion in the
I'd
prison?
really have to talk to the chaplain about it, but I think Christianity is number
Christianity.
one.
Mhm.
Probably Muslim would be behind that. Judaism behind that. And then on down to, you've got, what's the Native American one? I'm forgetting.
What about LDS or Catholic?
Yeah,
Or
they're there. Both of them
Uh-huh.
are. Probably LDS more so than Catholic.
Mhm.
What about Mormon?
Holiness,
LDS is
yeah.
Mormon.
But yeah, we've got every religion can be represented there except Satan.
Satanism is not
Mhm.
represented.
Right.
Ethnicity, blacks, whites. What's the big population in High Desert?
Probably more, I want to say, I was trying to look this up a while back too. I want to say probably whites, Hispanics, then blacks, and then Asians, and the Native Americans after that.
Okay.
Probably in that order.
Ms. Phillips, do you have anything else for Mr.?
No, I
Quinn?
think we
You
gave
hit it?
him. Yeah.
I don't think he knew what he was coming in.
Poor Kelly.
I thought
Probably
we were
the
talking
most
about
we-
legislature.
We did. We talked a little bit about
So real quick, so last session, we went straight from the election into preparing for legislature. And we had a core group of about 15, maybe 20 people that we would get together every Saturday on Zoom and talk about the bills that just happened this week and the bills up and coming the next week. And who could read those bill drafts. Right now we've got 980 some odd BDRs filed
Wow.
already, and before the session's even started. And we need people to read those and see what the unintended consequence is on a lot of those bills. So the BDRs, and you can go to the legislative website and look all these up, but the BDRs are only a 1 or 2 sentence description. Then once the language is written by the Legislative Counsel Bureau, then you can see the full draft of the bill and all the language and what it's really intending to do. So once you read that, then it's like, okay, do we want to try to get people to show up and testify on this? Oppose, support, click the mouse, oppose, support, write an email, call your representative. Every one of us have 2 on the Senate and Assembly side, so we should know who they are and be on the phone with them. And then the committee members, same way, just participating in the process. And then, like I say, the big bills really count to show up as well, and at least put a butt in the seat and say, I'm here. And last cycle, AB 400, which was one of the governor's bills for education, as an example, that had the most activity of the session last cycle before the stadium. And Grant Sawyer was packed, Carson City was packed. I happened to be in Carson City that day and got on the plane, flew down here, made it home, and the hearing was still going.
Wow.
And they just did what they wanted to anyway. So, and they gutted the bill. So I'd like to see that come back. But those kind of things are how you can get involved with it. And as far as putting it out there, just Google the state website or the legislative website, and it's leg.state.nb.us. And there's an area on there you can look up the BDRs. It's real simple to do. You can look up who your representatives are. They've got a law library on there. It's a great resource to be out there. And it's a good place for people to be involved. We're doing the same thing this cycle, and we're just getting ready to start on it. We're a little behind the 8 ball now, being this close to the session. But we're going to be doing the same thing. On Saturdays, we'll be getting on a Zoom, talking about the bills that are at hand. The nice thing this cycle, there's several other groups that are doing the same thing. A couple of the Republican clubs are doing it. CCRP is doing it. We're doing it. There's another church group doing it. Up north, there's a couple of groups. But last session had the most public participation of any session ever.
Why is that?
So, because people got engaged. We need to do the same thing this cycle. Even though the governor's veto are protected, we don't have the simple majority. So he's going to be vetoing probably another 7,500 bills this cycle, but at least they're protected.
Okay.
So until we can get the simple majority of at least one of the houses, then it is what it is. We don't control the bills that get put up.
If people want to get involved in that, can you tell people how to reach you? Email, phone number?
Yep.
How they
Yeah,
can?
we're gonna do that
how-
when he
Okay.
comes.
Okay.
But I know you wanted to talk about the legislature more, but I wanted to engage more in the prison, because if we could deter one person from not going into your prison, the show was worth it. The show was worth it. And the details you talked about, the prison system, I mean, I'm here listening. I'm like, I don't want to go there. You know what I mean? And I'm sure if somebody at home watching, I'm sure, I hope they're saying the same thing. I don't want to go there. And maybe I could handle this conflict in a different way than end up behind bars and be incarcerated and throw away my life and my constitution and end up not even making it back out of prison. You know?
Right.
So
there's a lot of people that are going to die there.
yeah,
So.
and it's sad.
Yep.
It's sad, but it's just reality.
So.
And a lot of people they need to like face reality and know that's a possibility if you do X, Y, and Z, right? So and that's why I just want to educate people out there and let them know what happens in High Desert Prison. That Kelly Quinn wants a job, so you guys come on down and do what you need to do. I'm messing with you.
There you go.
Keep Kelly Quinn employed.
We'll do a recruiting video here soon.
But I'm just messing around, but but I was serious about the other part. So
very good. Thank you.
Do you have anything else for Mr. Quinn?
No, not for Kelly, but I just have a closing announcement.
Oh, sure. What is that?
So February 4th, guys, is the next CCRP meeting. So please show up. If you want to vote, you have to show up. And all the seats are up. And if you want to make changes, which a lot of people do, you have to show up and participate. So February 4th, 5:30 at Stoney's. Show up, guys.
So, Mr. Quinn, look in the camera. Mark's going to zoom in on you, and you have the final remarks. You can say whatever. You've been on the show before. Yeah. If you want to give a point of contact, you can. You don't have to, but it's totally up to you.
Okay. totally agree with the CCRP meeting. We need to show up and participate in that process also. All of that. Find the Republican groups around town too and be involved with everybody, and especially the legislative session. So my contact information, my email is going to be Kelly at quinnfornv.com, and it's KELLY at QUINNFORNV.com. My email or my phone and text is 702-806-7838. If you go to call me or text me, just be mindful I'm totally away from my phone during the day because I can't take it to prison with me. So it might take me a while to respond back. But if you want to participate in any of the stuff that we're doing on Zoom on the weekends or up and coming legislature, or if you want to find out who else is doing the same thing, I'll help you get plugged in wherever we can get you plugged in at. But participate. So, and that's about it.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Quinn, for coming on the program. It has been a very eye-opening show, I think.
Good.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Folks, this was a show geared on Kelly Quinn, a correctional sergeant for the High Desert Maximum Security Prison. And like Mr. Quinn pointed out, the three factors, one, mental health, the other one, the no father figure in the home, hence family court, and the other one, poor education. So folks, you know what gets you in prison, so here's your opportunity to get yourself out of it before you even end up there. And if you know somebody that has one of those three, or maybe possibly all three of those, find help for them and help them out so they won't end up behind bars and be in the maximum security prison. This is Steve Sanson, Stephanie Phillips of Veterans in Politics. Until next time.